Guru Kripa Kevalam. Namaste everyone. Very warm welcome to Satsang today. Sadguru Shri Muji Baba ki Jai. So I said that I'll read from Master Bankai yesterday, but then this morning I saw a beautiful quote from that Amaya had posted. It is by Tahui. Tahui, how would you pronounce it? Tahui. I'm saying Tahui at the moment. So I was looking for this one and I found this beautiful book, so maybe I can read a little bit from this one and then we can go to Bankai, or we'll see how it goes. So this book is called Swampland Flowers, and basically it is the letters and lectures of Zen Master Tahui. So the first letter is called Clear the Mind. Buddha said, if you want to know the realm of Buddhahood, you must make your mind as clear as empty space and leave false thinking and all grasping far behind, causing your mind to be unobstructed wherever it may turn. The realm of Buddhahood is not some external world where there is a formal Buddha. It is the realm of the wisdom of an awakened sage. Once you are determined that you want to know this realm, you do not need adornment, cultivation, or realization to attain it. You must clear away the stains of afflictions from alien sensations that have been on your mind since beginningless time, so that your mind is as broad and open as empty space, detached from all the clinging of the discriminating intellect, and your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. Then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes. Very much like what we are sharing in Satsang. I can read it again a little slowly. Buddha said, if you want to know the realm of Buddhahood, you must make your mind as clear as empty space and leave false thinking and all grasping far behind, causing your mind to be unobstructed wherever it may turn. Like also in the beginning of the Ashtavakra Gita, the King Janaka asked, what is true knowledge? So this also starts in a similar way, where Buddha is saying, if you want to know the realm of Buddhahood, so presumably to know the truth, you must make your mind as clear as empty space and leave false thinking and all grasping far behind. You see? So now we've been seeing this every day, that when it says leave it far behind, it already is that seemingly difficult part is already done. You see? You left it behind. Now, causing your mind to be unobstructed wherever it may turn. So there's this big openness. Everything is allowed to come and go. You see? Now many times when the Buddhists use the term mind, they are speaking of being. You see? They are speaking of just beingness. You see? So as you leave what we would call beingness, you see, they would call the pure mind, and then they would call the false mind this what we call the mind, or the egoic mind, or the limited mind. So, the realm of Buddhahood is not some external world where there is a formal Buddha. It is the realm of the wisdom of a self-awakened sage. So, don't try to get it outside. You see? Don't try to get it as an experience. Don't try to find this truth or this Buddha like you will experience one object. You see? Don't try to find it as an objective experience. You see? Not some external world. So this is what I mean, that don't try to find it as some objective experience of truth or Buddha. It is the realm of the wisdom, or I would call it that simple recognition, you see, of the self-awakened sage. Once you are determined that you want to know this realm, which means, what does this actually mean? Determined that you want to know this realm? It is to come to this place where you just want truth for truth's sake. You see? You don't want a byproduct, you don't want some experience because of it, you don't want your life to change. You see? You just want to know this. You do not need adornment, cultivation, or realization to attain it. You see? Once you want truth for truth's sake, then no other prerequisites are there. Not even realization. You see? You see? You must clear away the stains of afflictions from alien sensations that have been on your mind since beginningless time, so that your mind is as broad and empty as empty space, detached from all the clinging. And what is the clinging to? Clinging of the discriminating intellect. You see, I like these words very much. It's a discriminating intellect, and your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. So, what is the sentence? All you have to do is clear away these stains. Which are the stains? The clinging of the discriminating intellect. You see, what is this discriminating intellect?
Mind.
Huh? Mind. It makes the interpretation, the judgment, yes, no, good, bad. You see, we make these distinctions, these discriminations. That's what we've been speaking about. You see, and that's why I've been saying that those who are truly open are those who are completely of a tired intellect. You see, who have tried using the intellect to get to this truth and come to various conclusions based on their reasoning, judgment, intellect, and said, this is it, this is not it, this is it, this is not it, but have tried all these tactics, all these conclusions, and they've come to a place where the intellect is tired. You see? We're seeing that all of these conclusions are made, but I can't rest on them. You see? So you're away from the clinging of the discriminating intellect, and your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. You see? So they can all come and go in this empty space of you. You see? Then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes. You see? Then your being is just being. You see? Now this discriminating intellect, you see, is very sneaky, because even upon hearing these words, it will make a judgment about them and say, yes, this is what I have to do now. You see, but even that conclusion is from the intellect, so let go of that also. Yes. In the sense that intellect uses concepts for its conclusions. You see, you have to bring it closer, otherwise they won't hear it. Oh, because that is a question. You see? So, intellect is that which is using these concepts as evidence for its conclusion. So when it says the world is like this, you see, now I'll say this is true, this, therefore, this, you see, yesterday he did something which was bad, so he must be a bad person. You see, all these inferences, all this inferring capability, you see, is intellect. It's all mind. But if you were to make these segregations, you would call reasoning, judgment as intellect, and you would call the appearance of just these concepts, you see, as just mind. So it's an aspect of the mind in a way. But it is our ability in a way to reason, to discriminate between even true and false concept. Concept is concept. When you say yes, yes, when you give belief, you use our intellect to discriminate between true and false. That is the intellect. So it is, in a way, is to exercise the power of belief is our intellect. To exercise that power and to give something truth value. Yes, yes, no, no. So these discriminations, even of truth and false, right and wrong, yes and no, is the intellectual capacity of the mind in a way, of the being in a way. So clinging to the discriminating intellect. So all you have to do, according to the sage, if there is a doing, it is to not cling to this discriminating intellect.
Not to make any conclusions.
Yes, even of this.
How does word vain thinking use that?
Yes, it's coming out. This discriminating intellect and your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. You see? So in the space of your being, the rising of these thoughts, which are all false, unreal, vain, you see, or does not affect the space, so they also remain like space. When you're not discriminating, you see, that this is a thought, this is not, then all is empty space. Very nice. Detached from all the clinging of the discriminating intellect and your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. You're not even discriminating between thought and not thought, like mind and no mind. You see, we don't even make that distinction.
Where does discernment?
Ultimately, even discernment has to dissolve. You see? Like you can use discernment in the sense of this is changing, therefore it cannot be the reality of me. You see? So you can use this power to discern that which is the changing versus the unchanging, the real versus the unreal. You see? But as you come to that recognition, then even this duality of false and true, real and unreal, changing and unchanging start to dissolve. So discernment is a useful provisional step, which you would say, okay, I'm really clinging on to something which is just changing, this is not going to bring any permanent joy into my life. You see, that can be discernment. But after a point, you come to this where you're not taking the position of even making a distinction between real and unreal. But you can also forget about after a point. Because we're talking about a typical journey, you see. But we can forget about all those notions also. Right? If you forgot about this discriminating intellect and allowed everything to come and go, you see, and you're not discriminating between even space and not space, being and not being, you see, none of these apply anymore. Then what does he say? Then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes. This is just some reassurance, some carrot, something. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. This one. But actually, then, if you let go of the discriminating intellect, then impeded, unimpeded, going, coming, all of that is also just notional. This is just like an answer to the mind says, if I do this, then what will happen? Which is still coming from the intellect. You see, still our inferences. The sage is reassuring you, saying, then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes.
Now, does it mean that the information which we have gathered through our sense perception, it should not sit at the driver's seat and drive you crazy?
In a way, yes. But something even further than that is that whatever is happening through perception is happening effortlessly. Right? But if we mean by information, we mean conceptual knowledge, then it doesn't even turn into that. You see, just like I keep taking this example of a baby drinking milk from the mother. It is not does not have the concept, the information that I have to now drink milk and this is how I can do it. It is just naturally unfolding. You see? Then our life becomes like that of a child, you see? Of the innocence of a child, which unfolds in its own natural intelligence and beauty. But we are not making, like, it depends on what you mean by information. If you just mean by information just pure perception in a way,
all the intellectual which you have built, which you have acquired,
then that is not senses, you see. So what happens is, what is all the intellectual knowledge that we have acquired are labels on top of the perceptions that we've had, and sometimes just labels without even perceptions, second hand. You see, second hand conceptual knowledge. You see, so this information can safely be dropped.
I mean, dropping becomes very difficult. We should not allow them to sit in the driver's seat.
But even that it is difficult is also information. Like a child does not know it is easy or difficult. How do you know? When did you start to know this? You were born with this? That it is difficult? No. You are not born with it, you see. We picked it up somewhere along the way. We probably came to some spiritual place and you were told drop the ego or kill the mind or something like that, and you feel like. And the mind itself came and said, but that is difficult. See. Or you tried, you feel like you tried and it doesn't feel like it is done or easy. So then we make this intellectual conclusion that it is difficult. You see? Now, how to come to the innocence of a child? It is already present here now, unless you think about it.
So it's not that we can, how to make it not to sit in the driver's seat.
It is not that at all. It is just to let it go.
It has no steering wheel.
Yeah, you don't make any reference point to, don't allow this mind to make any reference point to you. You see? And the reason why we cling to thought is because we feel like it means something to me. If it did not mean anything to you, then it was just another thought. You see? Like if a thought came to you that maybe it might be raining in Alaska, you will allow that thought to go easily. You will just say, how silly, how am I bothered? You see, it means nothing to you. You see, it is only those thoughts which have a reference point to you, which you feel have meaning to you. You see, and hence you feel like this will help me. Actually, you end up giving birth to this. You see, what you call information, or give birth to this sort of loss of innocence. You see, in the notion, you pick up the notion of me primarily. If it did not apply to you, you would not be bothered.
We do drive some pleasure out of that.
This is the thing, you see. Now, what happens is that sometimes what happens is when we are hurt, you see, the doctor tells us don't scratch the hurt, it will only become worse. You see, but you have to scratch it. We feel like, okay, at least I derive some pleasure out of that. You only end up making it worse. So, in indulging our mind, in indulging with our notions, it offers you, yes, at least you will get something out of this. You see, at least you know you're making some progress. Something, you see. It comes as a reassurance, but actually just becomes part of identity, becomes part of the ego. there is no reason ever to replace this innocence with any notion. Okay? Because in that lies the idea that this being, this existence cannot take care of itself. It needs a me to run this life. You see? Now if you start to think about even this, of course you will say, well, of course I need it. You see, how will I pay my bills? How will I do my study? You see, if you give it to this mind, obviously it will come with these kind of reports. You see? But never in any moment have you needed a notion to exist. You see? And never in any moment of existence has there been anything missing.
And then we create the discrimination in our
That's why,
actions.
exactly. That's exactly what the sage is saying. Let go of this discriminating intellect, your judgments, which you feel like you're running your life on the basis of. You see? And return to this innocence of the, what the sage said, effortless mind, wondrous mind, you would say the innocence of a child. Now, because this identified or this intellect or this notional engine has had the primacy for so long, you see, upon hearing this, it is bound to react and say, but this, but that, but this, but that. Isn't it? It's like a child who's not been invited to the party. Will want to come, will want to keep knocking and say, come, let me in. I have something good for you. I got a great birthday gift. You see? Okay, I know the last time I just came and I promised you birthday gifts, but you got nothing. But this time, I really have something useful. You see? So these offers have been coming. You see? For a lifetime now. There comes a point where we get so tired of them that we are done. What can tempt you now? You see, which offer from the mind is too good to refuse?
Get realization.
Huh?
To get realization.
Realization. This is the thing. This is the trap of the seeker identity. That's where the sage earlier said, you do not need adornment, cultivation, or realization to attain it. Huh?
I don't understand what it means.
Good. Yeah, so then then you're really letting go of your discriminating intellect.
No, the intellect says it doesn't understand.
Good. Let it say that to everything.
Yeah.
You see? But you want me to explain?
Not really.
This, the notion of realization is also just a notion. You see, like we were saying yesterday, like we have so many concepts around this one notion of realization. You see, like you were saying, the master is self-realized. Then in dream state also he should never get identified. These kind of things come because we have idea of realization. Once we have this notion of what it should be like, then already we are already caught up in a conceptual box of what freedom should be. Now, if freedom is a conceptual box, it cannot be freedom. If it is itself limited, that it can only be like this and not like that, then how would we call it freedom? You see, it would then be limited by that construct. Only what can happen to a sage is freedom. You see, something like that. How can that be freedom then? It still sounds like constriction. You see? So we don't need any special adornment, any special skills, any special technique, any special bodily adornment, any special worldly adornment. You don't need any sort of cultivation, like you don't have to make some progress every day. You see? Although it can feel like that. In the outward play, it might appear like that, but all of that is not needed, and even this notion of realization you don't need. Let others come and call it realization if they do. Actually, the sage is hardly ever saying when I got realization. He's hardly ever when I achieved my self-realization. This hardly any sage you hear like that. The sage is just saying it is just this, here and now. What does it mean for you, this term realization?
When you cease to exist yourself.
Then will the term realization exist when you cease to exist? What does it mean? What else does it mean?
Suffering comes to a stop.
Suffering comes to a stop. You see? And what else?
Getting identified with this body mind.
Is suffering.
Yeah,
Stops.
that
Stops.
To me, it's the end of confusion and
The
doubt.
end of confusion, doubt.
Like, it's more clarity.
Okay. Any perks, any other side benefits, any halos, any benefits in waking state or dream state, or like a constant avoidance in Turiya or something like that.
Non-states.
The end of the cycle of birth and death. What about that one?
Perpetual bliss.
Perpetual bliss, Ananda.
That's a nice one.
They have to be prodded out of you.
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
More than that. One more level above bliss is ecstasy.
Oh, yeah. And above ecstasy. So, what to do with all of this? Forget it. Forget it.
And to whom all of this?
Exactly. That's why I forget it. Because the one to whom these would apply as objective, the objective owner of all of this is just made up.
There are so many locks and only one key.
Yes.
Exactly.
There's so many locks, but only one. Is it? What is the key?
Yes.
Forget about it.
Is that New York?
Huh?
It's in New York.
Yeah, Italian mafia. So
Forget about me.
forget about everything.
Or forget the mafia control.
Yes, this is mind mafia. Okay. So let's see now if we can upload the passage in a fresh way. The Buddha said, if you want to know the realm of Buddhahood, you must make your mind as clear as empty space and leave false thinking and all grasping far behind, causing your mind to be unobstructed wherever it may turn. The realm of Buddhahood is not some external world where there is a formal Buddha. It is the realm of the wisdom of an awakened sage. Once you are determined that you want to know this realm, you do not need adornment, cultivation, or realization to attain it. You must clear away the stains of afflictions from alien sensations that have been on your mind since beginningless time, so that your mind is as broad and open as empty space, detached from all the clinging of the discriminating intellect, and all your false, unreal, vain thoughts too are like empty space. Then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes. Beautiful passage. Let's see if somebody's saying something. Picking up and dropping off in a way constructs the journeyer. Yes, exactly. The seeker. It's So, not even this discrimination, not discriminating between anything, including even picking up or dropping. What is Shivani saying? You will become nice. That for me, or you're saying then this wondrous, effortless mind will be unimpeded wherever it goes. That sounds nice. Okay, let's see if you can read one more. The second letter is called Mindlessness. An ancient Vadi had a saying. Ancient Vadi, ancient sage, had a saying: to look for the ox, one must seek out its tracks. To study the path, seek out mindlessness. Where the tracks are, so must the ox be. The path of mindlessness is easy to seek out. So-called mindlessness is not being inert, unknowing, like earth, wood, tile, or stone. It means that the mind is settled and imperturbable when in contact with situations and meeting circumstances. That it does not cling to anything, but is clear in all places, without hindrance or obstruction, without being stained, yet without dwelling in the stainlessness. You see? This is a very nice part. I'll just pause here for a moment. You see? So, many times we can get caught up in this idea. So, the sage said, without hindrance or obstruction, without being stained, yet without dwelling in the stainlessness. You see? Otherwise, we can pick up the idea that I must now just hold on to some, emptiness or something like that. But it is not either. It's just completely open. You see? Completely open. Even attention goes wherever it wants. You see?
But without clinging.
Without the clinging. You see?
Completely open, but without clinging.
Completely open means without clinging.
Oh, I see.
You see? Clinging means close. To close means only to cling. You see? To attach is to be closed. Open means no clinging.
You could add the word effortless also.
Effortless. Like space. So the sage using various terms to say the same thing. Open, like space. See? Unimpeded, unobstructed. All mean same thing. And not even hanging on to the idea of stainlessness.
That's actually a big one here, I think. I was just before saying, what is it that we naturally hide?
Try to come a little closer, my dear.
That we naturally hide certain things from ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like the stainlessness is what you're saying. Certain aspects when we feel let down by our own selves, because we're like, oh wow, this is not my basic nature. This is not.
Yeah.
When we're making that conclusion that it should feel like this.
Yes.
It should feel so free. It should feel so happy.
Exactly.
And then suddenly, we walk down a path. Let's say, we're walking and somebody splashes something on us, and then we're like, but not supposed to be.
Yes.
So even that stainless, that clarifies that huge way.
I've been saying these days that be free from all opposites. Everything that has an opposite, you can safely forget about, including forgetting and remembering. See, we have to use the provisional statements and then wipe them off also. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can get stuck on the provisional statement and take that to be the ultimate or the absolute truth or something like that. See, but that also has to be wiped away.
That is something that has to be constantly remembered. It's
Yeah,
really,
something.
really unstable, actually.
It's very unstable. Has got you caught? No, the mind has you caught in that way then. See? Like that. How is it just to be open? Can we speak a bit from experience? You want to wait for a few minutes and then say something. Yeah, I've often also said that open is my favorite word.
Mm-hmm.
Just one word, open.
Effortless is what comes to me.
Effortless. And this is open, which is not that open or close, effortless or effort. You see, it's not, it's out of those, but just points to that. Jumping out of this duality.
Simply being.
Yeah.
No resistance.
But okay, now don't report for a few minutes, because we also jump to a spiritual conclusion that we have got from so-called prior experience. Just remain fully open. And then if something comes naturally, then you can say it out. Don't rush to it. Don't rush to the conclusion. If something just grabs you by the throat and that.
Absolutely no resistance.
Yeah,
It's no resistance at all.
Just natural.
natural. You were saying yesterday Sahajan. I wanted to be Sahajan.
Yeah. That has remained in my mind actually.
Yes.
Is that Sahaja. Best way to be. The expression is
Yeah. Whatever the mind might be saying, but I want this forever, I want it only to be like this. You see? Even this will pass, it's just a thought. In the words of sage Bobby McFerrin, it will soon pass whatever it is.
What he does is yodeling. Is it called yodeling?
Bobby McFerrin. Yeah, he does yodeling also, but it's basically acapella singing, without instrument.
What's it called?
Acapella.
Acapella.
Acapella singing.
So amazing. He's still a musician. I think simple thing will be to drop the milestones.
Yes. And then drop the milestones also.
Yeah.
Don't rest on any conclusion, no matter how truthy it might sound, including this one.
That's another truthy.
As truthy as it might sound. Because it's clinging, it's still clinging. I have to drop the mind. Like it's still clinging. Just let go.
Sheepdog shoots it.
Okay, after all the sheep are gathered, where does the sheepdog go? He just keeps running?
Shoots itself.
No, he doesn't. He just goes home to the kennel or wherever.
I'm saying that one which
Yeah, that. It's self-dissolving, self-destructive. Yes.
Self-destructive.
This message will self-destruct
Yeah.
as soon as you are empty of all concepts. Your mission, if you choose to accept it,
Yeah.
is to be notionless.
You're reading minds, man. You're seeing exactly what content is. He said you're reading
It
minds.
happens sometimes. It's just this mouth it gets used. The thought came somewhere else.
More like the receiver of the message will self-destruct.
I can see a lot of funny conclusions are being made. So let me roll back the Mission Impossible references.
There's no path of self-destruction. It's not self-realization. It's self-destruction.
It's neither. I'm really going to say it's neither. So what?
You have to become a new trend. It's self-destruction. Become a new trend. Self-destruction.
As long as it's not self-distraction, we're okay.
Yeah.
One thing I really enjoy about that verse is where he says, like, don't cling to it, instead of, get rid of it, or also instead of saying don't use it, which I think is important, because like the mind does function sometimes in a relatively useful way, but it is that clinging that is more like a felt sense, and that becomes less appealing, Yes,
allow everything to just naturally.
Like unburdening.
Yes. Unburdening. Yes. I find that line very potent. Right? Without being stained, yet without dwelling in the stainlessness. You see, because that can be also a position that we take very strongly.
And it's probably like the biggest constriction of all, this sort of feeling as though you have to somehow like honour that you're discovering by living as that, as an undertaking. It's like, it's horrible. And just to release back into, because actually that which is being discovered, like, it doesn't depend on any particular way. It's so like
Open.
ever present.
Yeah.
It's and
Just open. It's so open
yeah.
that anything can
Without,
unfold.
without clinging to clinging and non-clinging.
Yes. And without clinging to non. And without the without. The good thing is that if you were to try and do it, it would be an infinite regress like that. You see, if you were to try and do it, it would be. So basically, the advice is just it's already available.
Yes.
It's here naturally. Just leave it as that. You see, without even clinging to the having to leave it as that.
Otherwise, just layers and layers and layers. You can keep
Yeah,
going like
because
that.
when you say, because everything then becomes like a position. How further back can I go? Behind. You can keep going like that. It just
So once we conceptualize, it becomes a position.
correct. Anything that you conceptualize then becomes a position. Okay, let's go a little further. Let's see. Yet without dwelling in the stainlessness, viewing body and mind like dreams or illusions, yet without remaining in the perspectives of dreams and illusions, empty nothingness. Only when one arrives at a realm like this can it be called true mindlessness. No, it's not lip service mindlessness. If you haven't attained true mindlessness and just go by the verbal kind, how is it different from the perverted whatever? As he's putting somebody down, so you won't read that. Then just get to the root. Don't worry about the branches. Emptying this mind is the root. Once you get to the root, the fundamental, then all kinds of language and knowledge and all your daily activities, as you respond to people and adapt to circumstances through so many upsets and downfalls, whether joyous or angry, good or bad, favorable or adverse, these are all trivial matters, the branches. If you can be spontaneously aware and knowing as you're going along with circumstances, then there is neither lack nor excess. So don't have to cling to it has to be just like this, or it has to be only joyous, or this activity must stop, or it should not happen. You see, it's not about, like we keep saying, not about the outer expression at all. It is about this notionlessness, empty of positions. Then I feel like this title is a bit attractive, so I feel to read that. Okay, so this one says, tend the ox. Since you are studying this path, then at all times, in your encounters with people and responses to circumstances, you must not let wrong thoughts continue. If you cannot see through them, then the moment a wrong thought comes up, okay, we'll see. We might argue with this one a bit. If you cannot see through them, then the moment a wrong thought comes up, you should quickly concentrate your mental energy to pull yourself away. If you always follow these thoughts and let them continue without a break, not only does this obstruct the path, but it makes you out to be a man without wisdom. In the old days, Koi Shan asked Lazy Anne.
Lazy Anne. Lazy Susie.
Just went there for lunch. In the old days, Koi Shan asked Lazy Anne, "What work do you do during 24 hours of the day?" Anne said, "I tend an ox." Koi Shan said, "How do you tend it?" Anne said, "Whenever it gets into the grass, I pull it back by the nose." Koi Shan said, You're really tending the ox. People who study the path in controlling wrong thoughts should be like lazy ant tending his ox. Then gradually a wholesome ripening will take place of itself. Then gradually a wholesome ripening will take place of itself. It's similar. This passage is similar to what Bhagavan said in terms of as long as it feels like effort, make the effort, then one day you will see that that is also grace. You see? Because many times we can get into this sort of mental, like non-doership. Like, who am I to not believe my thoughts? You see? Like, I'm not the doer. You see, like this kind of sort of too much, conceptual Advaita.
Position.
This is like make a position. You see? So just like if it feels like a bit of effort to step back from these positions, or when you at least spot that this is the position, you see, just notice that without applying a position on top of it. Oh, you see, that just happened, and you see, it's fine or something like that. Neither fine nor not fine. Just noticing it is enough. You see, but not to make a conclusion about yourself based on that. Even the conclusion that either I'm the doer or not doer. You see? Because this use of Advaita knowledge to make position then becomes very sticky, you see. So even now some of your mind might be revolting, saying, but this is what I was going to say, you see. Like that. You can see that. It's just the mind. Just you're noticing, like I say, just you're noticing is enough. You don't have to take a shovel, dig it out. You don't have to do anything. There is no such shovel anyway. But don't add on to more concepts about yourself based on what you've learned spiritually.
What does he imply by wrong thought?
I would say all. You said before.
So he said something wrong thought.
Yeah.
What does it imply by that?
What did he say before about thoughts?
Same passages.
Same.
Breathing out.
That all thoughts,
Go ahead.
you said.
In the same
Like
direction.
said they were
In the
vain,
same
vain.
direction.
False, unreal, vain
Yeah.
thoughts too are like empty space.
This passage.
I have not yet met a right thought. Have you?
No, first of all, I don't know what to call wrong thought. Itself is in confusion. What is the thought and what is not wrong thought?
See, this is in a way the discriminating intellect. You see? So you must just use these lightly as pointers. Just the medicine is doing the job on its own. Like in the introduction to the book Consciousness Speaking with Consciousness, it is there. You see, what is being spoken is consciousness speaking with consciousness. No personal intervention is needed. So you don't have to invent yourself and the understander of all of this. Something just works. You see, subtly. In your just openness, these words will do their job on their own. If you try to dissect them, understand them, okay, then again, that's why maybe the sage started by saying drop your discriminating intellect, and then you have to apply it to even these, that's why I'm calling them provisional truths, because and another way I say it is don't build an idol to Harpic. So, without the idea of stainlessness is like a sword to the false ideas. Yes. Very good. Oops. Let's just read one more and see how it's going. Do not grasp another's bow. Do not ride another's horse. Do not meddle in another's affairs. Though this is a commonplace saying, it can also be sustenance for entering the path. Just examine yourself constantly from morning to night. What do you do to help others and help yourself? If you notice even the slightest partiality or insensitivity, okay, I'm also reading this for the first time, okay, so don't hold me to these kind of words. If you notice even the slightest partiality or insensitivity, you must admonish yourself. Don't be careless about this. In the old days, Chan Master Tao Lin lived up in a tall pine tree on Chin Wang Mountain. People of the time called him the bird's nest monk. When Minister Po Chu Yi was a commander of Chin Tang, he made a special trip to the mountain to visit him. Po said, "It's very dangerous where you're sitting, Chan Master." The master said, "My danger may be very great, Minister, but yours is even greater." Po said, "I am commander of Chin Tang. What danger is there?" The master said, "Fuel and fire are joined. Consciousness and identity do not stay. How can you not be in danger?" Po also asked, "What is the overall meaning of the Buddhist teaching?" The master said, "Don't commit any evil. Practice the many virtues." Po said, "Even a 3-year-old child could say this." The master said, "Though a 3-year-old child can say it, an 80-year-old man cannot carry it out." Po then bowed and departed. Now, if you want to save mental power, do not be concerned with whether or not a 3-year-old child can say it, or whether or not an 80-year-old man can carry it out. Just don't do any evil, and you have mastered these words. They apply whether you believe or not. So please think it over. If worldly people, okay, this is very much about ethics. Let me read the next one. The mind's conceptual discrimination. The obstruction of the path by the mind and its conceptual discrimination is worse than poisonous snakes or fierce tigers. Why? Because poisonous snakes and fierce tigers can still be avoided, whereas intelligent people make the mind's conceptual discrimination their home, so that there's never a single instant, whether they're walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, that they don't have dealings with it, that they are not having dealings with it. As time goes on, unknowing and unawares, they become one piece with it. One piece, P-I-E-C, and not because they want to either, but because since beginningless time they have followed this one little road until it becomes set and familiar. Though they may see through it for a moment and wish to detach from it, they still can't. Thus it is said that poisonous snakes and fierce tigers can still be avoided, but the mind's conceptual discrimination truly has no place for you to escape. You see? I very much like this one. It's a bit strong, but sometimes it's good to shake things up a bit. He says the obstruction of the path by the mind and its conceptual discrimination is worse than poisonous snakes or fierce tigers. You know what is? We talked about this conceptual discrimination, this intellectual distinction, making distinctions between, making our judgments, giving truth value or not to things. Why? Because poisonous snakes and fierce tigers can still be avoided, whereas intelligent people make the mind's conceptual discrimination their home. So that there is never a single instant, whether they are walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, that they are not having dealings with it. As time goes on, unknowing and unawares, they become one piece with it, and not because they want to either, but because since the beginning they have followed this one little road until it has become set and familiar. Though they may see through it for a moment and wish to detach from it, they still can't. Thus it is said that poisonous snakes and fierce tigers can still be avoided, but the mind's conceptual discrimination truly has no place for you to escape. You see, within itself, there is no escape. You cannot escape this conceptualizing mind using the conceptualizing mind itself or using another conclusion. You see, at best they are the term I've been using often today is a provisional truth. It seems to like the thorn, as Bhagwan would say. The self-destructive thorn. But mostly what happens is the intelligent people, as he calls them, feel that the freedom from this trap will also be in a concept. Like I've been saying that if you were sleeping and your father had to wake you up, then the words that he's using to wake you up are just words that he's using to wake you up. They are not by themselves some truth, you see. So they are not itself to be held on. It is your waking up which is important. You see? And so exactly what Guruji means when he says, don't make tattoos out of my words, because all masters are using them provisionally. He's got a Om Shanti tattoos. So, because it is not in the words. The truth is not in the words. They can point to them at their best. They can point to them. At their worst, they just are traps in a way. Just limited boundaries, like the Sage said. They follow this one little road until it becomes set and familiar. We just feel like our approach to life is to try and resolve it mentally. You see? Even our spiritual quest, we feel like we have to resolve it mentally. Till we come to a mental resolution, it won't be resolved.
It kind of
And
started
yet,
mentally.
Huh?
It kind of started mentally,
Yeah.
or it is
Like all quests,
interpreted mentally.
like all quests in a way, started with an idea of what should happen, what you are in class 3, then you have to go to class 4, you see, so it's an old, familiar road. You go into a class, you learn certain things, you learn them well enough, you're able to reproduce them, then you move on to the next, you see, like that. So with this freedom thing, we also get into it, feeling like it will be like that. Once I know enough about the truth, then I can clear the enlightenment certification. And you see, done. Really like that. So this is a strange type of class. It's like, you learned that, okay, you leave that also behind. You learned that from this class, you leave that also behind. And many times, initially the protest can be, but you told me. Yeah, I know. But leave it, you see. Or you'll bring out the big guns and say, Bhagwan said, Maharaj said. You see? Then they say, yeah, but still. Little meekly I have to say then, leave it behind. Because all that we'll remember, but we'll forget what Bhagwan said when he said all these are also just thorns to be ultimately meant to be thrown away.
When you see Buddha on the way, you immediately.
Yeah. But my way is a bit different. Like, let him come and go. Because to kill him also it becomes a very strong position. You see? Then you're just waiting with the Buddha calm. So, some who are attracted to a more sort of rebellious sort of spirituality can also make that into opposition. You see, look at this one trying to take a holy place for himself. I'm just going to go kill him. You know, something. I'll prove to him that he doesn't. Like this kind of thing. That can also become very personal. What was meant originally was that let go of your objective version of truth, of freedom, like the sage started. No? If you feel like you will find the Buddha externally, forget about it. That's not what the Buddha is. It is a natural, unobstructed being. That's what killing meant. But we take it very like we apply it to this phenomenal world. So those who have traversed the path of their intellect very diligently in their lives, then sometimes it can feel like they rely on it a bit longer because they feel that this is what has helped them in the past. See, they got me through this problem, so now I'll just leave this problem of spirituality also with my intellect, and one day it will say, I am Brahman itself. You see, something, and that will be it. With that knowledge, I'll be free. You see? But what can the intellect do with non-conceptual knowing? At best, it can make some fancy statements about it. In the negative, saying it cannot be this way, it cannot be that way.
I remember having read somewhere, after Buddha got his enlightenment, somebody asked him, what did you get? He said, no, I didn't get anything, I lost everything.
Yes.
Can the mind learn to say, I don't know, and to submit itself, or is the mind always in opposition to?
Say again? Can the
Can
mind learn to say?
Learn to say I don't know, and to sort of submit
it
itself.
can adapt. It can adapt.
And remain like, obviously the mind's not conscious of anything, but like, you know, we can recognise like where the mind's useful function begins and ends within phenomenal life. So rather than obviously the mind trying to solve. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
But then on the other side, like you could argue that another definition of the mind is basically like that it's always in opposition to what is.
Let's look at both aspects. So the first part is whether the mind adapts, you see. And I've seen that it is, from here experience I can say it is a lot less fighting, you know, lot less resentful in its content, you see. It tries to be more like a helpful pet at times, you see. So that is it can change its parts in that way, you see. But in terms of truly becoming helpful would then mean that there is someone here other than God, or other than, in the sense that somebody who needs that assistance actually would then have to exist for the mind to be able to assist them. You see? So I would say rather than helpful, I would say more playful, more funny than oppressive. So
and what about like creativity, for example? Because obviously that creative impulse, that like stroke of genius, even you could say, comes from within an aspect of the mind, I would say. But at the same time, it's not the same mind which is like very linear, always repeating itself in the same patterns, the same judgments. You know, it comes almost like from a higher.
Yes. Creativity. All creativity comes from that which creates even mind.
From the source.
From even mind. You see, so sometimes, of course, it will give you some glimpses of something like this, but credit has to go to that from which it emerges in a way. If any credit is there, you see. So this creativity.
So would you say like the mind has no function, useful function?
I would say that if you buy into that box of useful and usefulness, not useful or not useful, you see, then you are already caught up in that. You see? So would an answer like not applicable be okay?
I don't feel like I need an answer. You know, I'm just sort of like
exploring, but in the sense that the message overall today seems to be that let's step out of all the opposites, and also then is it useful or not is also in that paradigm. You see? Like I was saying that like that interview I had recently with that journalist who said we were talking about consciousness or self or something like that, and then he said something like but actually at the end of the day we are human. You see? And it's a very acceptable idea in the world. You see, all spirituality, all spirit, all talk of all of this is fine, but let's get real for a minute. You see? Like we are human. So we inject that duality of humanity versus spirituality, you see, into that thing. And I said, what if I just don't buy that reference point? What if I don't agree to that reference point that we are humans? You see? Is it too scandalous or blasphemous to say? You see? In the same way, if we can step out of this duality, you see, and be open to the possibility that everything is neither useful nor useless. You see? We withdraw it from that attribute from it. You see? Because that also in a way can be a way to make a limited reference point to what this is or what anything is.
Like I've heard on a separate point, because you mentioned that it was something that I was interested and was interested in, really, I can say, but like it's this school of thought, you could say, that if you leave behind all ideas of separation, so from the perspective of clear seeing, that clear seeing, like there's a recognition that arises within itself of its own nature, and then like certain teachers I've heard say leave it at that, basically, like not even leave it at that there's somebody who can leave it at that, but almost as though that clear seeing then leaves itself at that. And others who say that actually the nature of this knowingness is to sort of then like almost like, could you say, re-enter itself, or like to explore itself now that it's not like in opposition to itself through this instrument of the mind. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm not really describing it very well.
Is it like the Bodhisattva thing? You help
no, it's like Adyashanti talks about it a lot. So he says he calls it embodiment, and so he says like it's actually the nature of awareness to how to describe it. So now that perception's being corrected, so to speak, like it's the nature of true seeing to because it doesn't need to maintain any distance from its own experience of itself. Therefore, it's like its process then is kind of like a constant intimacy and merging, and so like he calls that embodiment, and he says that like there is a human element to that, so that basically like source is experiencing itself like as human beings, as one of its expressions, and so it doesn't necessarily want to remain like lofty and detached. It actually wants to really re-enter the human experience.
But okay, Adya, all of you know I love him bits and great reverence for him, but for me freedom is like very broad. if you are able to define and say that this is how it must be, or it should be, or it usually is, at best we can say usually is,
Yeah.
which is quite open, you see. But for me, if something becomes that it should be, then it's no longer then freedom, you see.
Yeah.
There is no reason why consciousness has to be only a certain way when, if, then it doesn't have to have that flowchart, you see, because then it doesn't seem like freedom to me. And why would it want to experience the same thing redundantly in so many expressions? So it could be in some they just like sit in a jungle like Yajnavalka. Some will come like the modern day masters who come and share satsang, you see, like that. So I won't say this has to be this way or doesn't have to be this way. That doesn't sound like freedom.
Oh no, I didn't mean it like,
Yeah.
does it have to be like this or like this? It was just more.
If you're saying it usually does, then it's fine.
No, I'm just like inquiring. Like,
No, I'm just talking about what I seem to hear, which was that once we come to a true recognition about ourselves, then it sort of behooves us to embody, embody this or something like
no,
this.
No, nothing like that.
Then say again.
Because you were saying that like you'd had this chat with somebody, and he was saying like, yeah, but what about it comes down to being human?
So it's like it's a
and
very
so I'm
much
saying
like
it seems like in some teachers, and I'm not saying like the battle of the teachers or anything, but like in some teachers
I gladly
would
surrender.
Yeah, no, they would maybe agree with that
Yeah.
and say like, actually, yeah, there is an element of it that's human, because like
Yes,
that is discovering itself through the human form as opposed to.
Yes,
like,
it doesn't have to go away at all, because in a way what Maharaj said, I allow my human nature to unfold as it must, and I remain as I am.
Yeah.
You can share more about this when there's more coming up, but it's fully free, in the sense that some can, that's why I was saying whether it's like the Bodhisattva thing where some can feel like,
Yeah.
you see, I saw this for myself, but what point is it unless I bring all my
Yeah.
brothers and sisters also into it or something? They can still have that, and they know that it's conceptual. They know that, you see, it's like that, but that seems to be where the energy is coming for. The light is coming towards moving the particular body mind in that direction. You see?
Yeah.
And some can just feel like I'm going to just become a recluse in the mountain and never speak to anyone. You see? So I would feel like consciousness is fully free to experience itself in all those ways.
I think that's what I'm getting at, because sometimes like I don't want to like subscribe to a particular school,
Yes.
because they're all like spokes of the same wheel basically in a way, and I can see that, and like I appreciate that. And sometimes within like within non-duality, like what we would call non-duality or Advaita, there can sometimes almost be like a kind of a boom, full stop, almost as though it's like, and even like I was reading, I mean I won't keep going through all these things, but I was reading something the other day, and it was saying how basically like self-inquiry is like the final and ultimate path, and I can see that because I understand that like otherwise you can remain as basically a spiritual person instead of spirit in direct experience of yourself. But I just feel like you say, freedom's so vast that it can include everything, and it can also, like, beyond awakening, it can, what we call awakening, like it can continue to experience itself in different ways, in so many different expressions, because it is unlimited.
Of course.
And so sometimes I almost feel like maybe within Advaita there can be a tendency to kind of agree on these like very absolutist terms and say like yes, and such, and actually like I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get the sense of what you're saying, because
to do that.
Many times can happen like that somebody has a very strong spiritual experience, but the memory of that spiritual experience and the conclusion of that
Yeah.
can also then become a very egoic position that we take, that this
Yeah.
is how my life is going to be now, you see, or something like that. You see? So in any path, any form, I won't even go as far as to say that we have to say that this is the ultimate and final goal. Self-inquiry is the ultimate and final. Whatever pushes you out from this duality. Advaita is what? Basically that there are no two. So make no distinctions. See? There are no distinctions, even between being and non-being. That is Advaita, isn't it? So whether we pull the chair this way, you see, it is to, okay, I'm going to see who I am, or to pull the chair this way, which is that I just surrender everything that concerns me, you see, or whether you pull the chair another way and see that all these concepts are bunkum anyway, you see? So it's all coming to this, stepping back from this dualistic nature of the mind, you see? And whether it's inquiry, surrender, any path, even meditation, whatever, you see? So we can become very dogmatic about these things sometimes and say, no, ours. It's a normal human tendency. Ours has to be the best, or is the ultimate or final. But you're right when you're saying that even in Advaita there's a lot of position taking going on. You see? Now, we don't have to have a position with regards to that. You can just be open about that also. You notice it, that it is good. Okay, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And
You see? But if you come and say so, and if you are carrying that and say, Father, help me with this, and I will point it out. You see? But I am not going uninvited to Advaitins and saying, see, you're holding that position. They are entitled, consciousness is enlightened, entitled to experience itself in that way. Just what happens more and more, at least from this experience I can say, what's happening more and more is that these shoulds, have tos, seem to become very light.
Maybe it's because like the words of these very direct teachings are sort of like you say, that they're there as a kind of map for the mind, basically, to try and orient it in a different direction. And but when they're interpreted by the mind, they do sound very much like there's this kind of like point of awakening, which is like, knowable by the mind. And actually, as far as I've experienced, like actually when the words like hits something and the clarity is there, it's actually the opposite. Like everything opens up, and it opens up so incredibly vastly that like nothing can contain that. And even sometimes these ultimate pointings actually just seem kind of like
notions,
very limiting in a way.
Yes. That's why it was great joy here when we were reading Ripu Gita the other day, and in one verse the sage says, once you come to the recognition, or in a way I'm paraphrasing, once you recognize what the truth is, then you will be away even from the duality of I am Brahman. Like, wow, this is beautiful. And then someone asked a question, I don't know who it was, and they said, maybe Jyotima, she said, but how is that duality to say I am Brahman? Because it's the most non-dualistic statement, you see, in a way. Then this example came up, you see, that have you ever met anyone asserting that I have a mouth? You see? That assertion itself opens the possibility of the opposite being possible. You see? So if you still have to assert I am Brahman, that means that the negation is also possible. You see, that's why we have to keep asserting it. But the negation of this is just not possible. You see? Therefore, even in the assertion, there is duality. You see? That's why thorn, pointer, harpic, these kind of terms you can use for it. You see? Because I would also not say that we can make a template out of it and say nothing should be spoken, because in this play I have also seen that how these provisional truths seem to point us in a way where outward silence does not. So like we'll go back to where we started, in a sense that I just have to say that it's so broad that you couldn't really say that this is how it is or should be. It's also an aspect of our discriminating intellect, you see, where it makes this distinction between what it thinks is right and wrong, and say, okay, so this must be right or this must be wrong. What if we drop those opposites?
That is the sixth sense, isn't it?
Sixth sense.
Five are only enough.
What is that? Intuitive. Don't worry, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just laughing with you.
Yeah. To say what is right and what is wrong. This discrimination.
Is that what sixth sense is? There's a movie where this one could see ghosts, so that was the sixth sense. Oh, sorry, spoiler. You haven't seen it in 20 years then. I heard sixth sense more being used more like this, like intuitive faculty, you know, like this being able to say, I feel like my daughter, she's having some trouble, let me call her. This sense can come, like this intuitive. You can't, there's nothing in the perception which is like that, but it's just sometimes like a intuitive sense can come, really, like the sixth sense. So usually I've heard sixth sense being referred to this kind of
actually what I heard was this discriminating right and wrong, like and like this Adam Eve's story, like when this apple was eaten, that's when like
that's exactly what the story is about, but I've never seen that correlation with sixth sense, and that's okay. You can use it like that, it's fine.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Might not. It's a thought.
Just before you start on that, just I want to say that story is very good for what the Zen master is saying. This discriminating intellect is that the apple. Because I used to get very confused, and you correct me if my biblical knowledge is not great, but when I read it, the version I read said it was the fruit of knowledge or something, really? And as a child I remember being confused because I always felt like knowledge is a good thing.
Yeah, that's the knowledge of good and bad.
Yeah, knowledge of good and bad. So I felt like why did that cause so much trouble? Is it? So it's only now. Like, to know one thing is to know too much. With this discriminating intellect, you see, is that once it's the story of the child losing its innocence in a way. You see, the child is not living life discriminating. This should be, this should not be. this is right, this is wrong, this is good. So, in a way, our growing up or our loss of innocence is eating that apple. This idea you want to do. Yeah, come.
Let's see if this makes sense.
It doesn't have to. You're in satsang after all.
Kind of relates to the embodiment thing.
Yeah.
So,
can you, either of you or both of you, can you elaborate on what it means, embodiment?
well, what I'm about to say kind of is,
Different? Oh, okay, then you.
it would be like tail end of relating to embodiment. Because I don't know, it's kind of starting from that question, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what it means technically, right? You know.
I have a sense of okay. So let me say then, because it's coming up with this to say, like, would it mean that? Okay, I'm lost. You say that.
So, a free being, okay, is still waking up on some level, right, in a dream where its mind or minds that are not separate from it or that are not it are believing that they're not free. So
go slowly, please. So
free being,
free being.
Ananta free being, Muji free being, Jesus free. We'll believe Jesus out of it, but I never met him.
What do you say? Jesus. So what is it? And then?
So free being, it recognizes that the self, God, whatever is the nature of everything that it's seeing, but it's in a dream, a lila, whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is, whatever this is.
Yeah. But not as that one.
Not as that one, but it can still cognize on related to the embodiment. So I'm not saying no one's awake. I'm just saying on the level of embodiment, it's still walking and meeting other people. Let's leave it with people.
We'll leave it.
Animals, aliens. But that are believing that it can recognize that this is its mind on some level. It's not his mind, but it's not a mind that's separate from what it is.
Yeah, okay.
And that mind that's not separate from what it is believes that it's not free.
Yes.
So isn't embodiment that movement of, if this mind that's not separate from what it is believing and experiencing itself not to be free, then that's still on some level, that's awakening. If it's in a dream, or then what does that mean? If it's a mind that's not separate from what it is, and it can recognize that it's not free, then that's not.
No,
it's not another.
So the mind is not seen separate from what it is. Yes.
So you mean
the mind is believing, in the sense that then you would have to include even the beingness itself in the mind, like the Buddhists would say mind. Is that the way you're saying it?
I'm saying
the mind believing the mind.
So let's say I'm saying that a free being, even though it can recognize, if it meets me and I'm not free, to recognize that you are not separate from what is, and this is only a belief that's being held. But this is happening within a dream on a certain level.
Yeah.
Meaning, I mean, isn't there just incomprehensible embodiment that's just waiting to happen? Because it's in a dream.
This part is not comprehensible to me. What is it?
This one bothered me when I thought about it.
Yeah,
No,
we can explore.
yeah.
So,
So-
this part is a bit. What is it?
so-
Incomprehensible embodiment. Meaning what?
Like it's can at least recognize the perception of belief in separation, in fear,
Yes.
in death,
Yes.
all around it.
Yes.
It's not calling itself it, but it can still recognize a sea of that confusion. And that confusion, can't be claimed that it's my confusion, but it also can't be claimed anymore that it's not my confusion. It's in a sea of confusion on some level. It's not obvious. I'm asking you from the other side a little bit, but I'm saying it because it's a lot of times it's embodiment, so you get back into.
In a way, is it like this that as we have this conversation, is it? Then let's speak in the boundary. Let's admit to that boundary that okay, I am speaking only as Ananta and not as Andy. We'll admit to that boundary first, and then we admit to that boundary that as Ananta, I have to presume. You see, a lot of things about Andy, that this must be what is happening, the mind must be there must be some belief in this, and then in a way like a doctor to prescribe to you that if you take this or come to your notionlessness or something, because under the presumption that you could be suffering in that way, you see, you have to operate. Is that in a way what your embodiment
I'm saying
is?
under the knowing that Andy is not separate from that which I am.
Yes. But on top of that knowing, I have to.
And that dream of Andy believes it's separate. And I'm in an apparent room with a dream believing it's separate.
No, not. Okay, let's go slowly. So.
Or not I.
An
apparent room is here, and in an apparent dream of 2 feet from this body is an apparent belief with energy on some level, believing in suffering and separation.
Yes. All this has to be presumed.
And then, so doesn't it get tricky on some level where
it's okay.
No, where the sense of how can I say that, just like it's kind of just seems to me on extension if an awakeness was here and there was a pain in my knee.
Yes. And to put some balm on it.
Yeah, well, the embodiment or whatever, or I don't know, I lost my dog passed away or something, and the embodiment conversation would be, you don't have to be.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it seems like that doesn't stop with the human experience. It's like it's everywhere. I mean, and this is your life, really. I mean, your life is you particularly. I mean, it's just being of service in this way. But I guess like it. There seems to be different things. Like in the Course in Miracles, sometimes it talks about like this whole dream doesn't really end until this recognition with everything that you perceive to be another creature is realized.
Yeah, it's like the Bodhisattva thing. Yeah. It's a bit like the Bodhisattva thing. I understand. But also Buddha also said that when I woke up, the whole world woke up. You see? So we can't really come to any conclusion and say, okay, that is the final truth or something like that. But I'm open to.
I guess the reason it has a feeling that I haven't rejected is kind of a loosening of the sense of getting to that finish line of realization. That I don't know what that means, really. Like
I feel like this idea is not yet loosened up. Is that what
well, it has loosened up the realization, but it was the sense of I don't know. I wouldn't know what it would mean.
I feel like something is coming up here to say about the first aspect. I just feel like, and
I don't think about this very much.
It's
Only
okay.
kids. I don't go
same,
around
same.
thing. I just
It's
came
good.
out.
It's a beautiful
Yeah.
exploration. It's nice. I enjoy. It's a fresh exploration. I like it very much. I feel more. If I had to say something about the first part of what we spoke of, like Ananta embodying the truth or something like this, I feel like if I came with that sort of intent, I feel like I'd be a little more burdened. You see? If I came with that sort of intent that I better embody the truth or something like that. You see? Now, I'm not making a reference to whatever any other teacher might be saying. I'm just speaking fresh from the experience here. You see? I would go as far as to say that the teachers that seem to be struggling the most are the ones who are trying to be good teachers. You see? Or trying to be a version of the truth which is like the most helpful or something like that, because that is then you have to be like very like careful what is coming out of this mouth. Is this really like this? Here what is worked in a way, if anything has worked at all, is just to leave it and just to let this one unfold as it is unfolding. You see?
Yeah.
So but I know that there are many teachers, some of the traditional teachers, of course, they will prepare for the lectures, they will have this Upanishad ready and say, this is what I'm going to say about this word, this is what and that's helpful too, it's fine. And they're saying that it seems like a bit more, maybe I'm too lazy for something like that, you see, or it just seems like a bit of effort or something, you see, to try and live up to some standard of truth or embodiment or something like that.
Well, just have this is dropping the complicated inquiry.
Yeah.
Just reporting from someone who's been to a lot of the satsang and stuff. I would say the satsang reporter, on the satsang reporter, latest non-duality. I would say, like, the movement that I kind of came in when you started, of kind of dropping some of the conceptual framework and focusing on just this essence. It seems to be a movement that I've seen where other teachers, they might use the word embodiment, where they stop using that language and they start speaking in more human terms. But that sometimes I like where you're coming from more, because if you're just saying like openness and then it's like the mind can grab on that and feel guilty, like I'm not just like trying to be open, and you can feel it in the satsang, but then it's sometimes hard to kind of. But anyway, so it seems to be a similar thing, the embodiment and the dropping.
I have to. Maybe I have to keep up with terminology better because.
No, still.
Could I add a little bit as well? It's just interesting because, like, I don't think, like, in terms of what I was talking about, I agree, like, to set yourself a mission. Like, I, as the individual, I'm going to embody the truth, because it's impossible. It's like trying to put.
I won't wish it on anyone. I won't wish it on anyone.
Yeah.
It just seems like to carry a persona of somebody who's working, or the persona of a seeker, a student. All these personas themselves are heavy enough.
Yeah.
But imagine trying to carry a persona of an enlightened one.
Yeah.
Like trying to carry that, like trying to watch every step. Is this enlightened enough? It's just like seems like too much construction going on there. Trying to be just right in the thing. So I can say that I'm almost certain that that's not what must be what you must be talking about.
Yeah, so I think it's like, from the way I understood it and the way that it kind of resonated, and I didn't feel like it was in conflict with like a more ultimate, I don't want to use that word, but it seems like there's some you know, like pointings you could say that basically get you to this stage of like nothing at all, just nothing you can cling to, and just this kind of very like there's this identity as like a felt and experienced identity, not a conceptual one, as like universal spirit, and then it's even let go of that.
That's too fast,
right?
That's too fast for me.
Okay, so there's obviously
the felt identity is how.
I mean, like to experience yourself as that. So that awareness, instead of experiencing itself believing in limitations, it's now experiencing itself clearly as unlimited, open.
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
I had felt or experienced identity and not a conceptual one.
Yeah, so like obviously we have to use some kind of words. So when I say identity, I mean like if you were to say like who are you? Then the felt inner response to that question is like the recognition of universal awareness, rather than I'm Govind or I'm Ananta, I'm so many years old, I live in Bangalore, like whatever, So it's like that. And then obviously like there's this instruction in a way to go beyond even that, to go beyond even identifying with that. Then this embodiment idea seems to be that awareness, awakened awareness, which is no longer believing in these limitations, its nature isn't to, and I'm not saying should or shouldn't or always is, but this is just the idea, its nature isn't to sort of remain as this kind of lofty self-absorbed experience kind of state, but actually to like re-enter its human experience.
Okay, just for a moment let's pause. So, but even in the recognition of that, it is not found to be lofty or aloof in a way.
No,
it was
like I feel like sometimes
natural.
when we're speaking satsang about anything human, it's very quickly pushed aside as like no, don't even hold on, and like always coming back to this sort of like, you understand what I mean? Which is also like absolutely true and absolutely correct, and it just seems that this is a kind of, and for me, like I resonate with all of it. Like it doesn't seem to conflict at all. But
okay, so proceed. So then,
it's like, how does that wisdom, how does the wisdom of that recognition like percolate back into human form and human expression? And almost, I guess like maybe the question that you might ask is, well, are you sure you're in human form? From that perspective of like,
I would also maybe say that naturally,
because we are also here as that.
No, I'm saying that instead of saying, but are you sure you're in human form? I would say if the question was, how does that recognition then translate in our human experience? I would say more likely say just naturally.
Exactly. So it's not like there's no individual there doing it, but I think like for example Ajay, he's talking about like a natural movement of the same consciousness. It first of all there was a movement away from belief and limitation, and then there's a second movement where it's like a kind of re-entry almost, where it's like that newly awakened consciousness, not in the sense that now it's awake and it wasn't awake before, like in that sense, but that it's now divested itself of beliefs, is now like continuing the human experience and like deepening and deepening and deepening into that experience. I think that's what embodiment is like meant. That's because you were saying like, what does it mean? I'm Like, as far as I've understood it, that's what they're talking about.
Thank you for.
But you know, it's like you were saying, you know, that freedom is so free that might happen or it might not happen.
Yeah, it's okay. It's so free that we can allow even statements of this is how it should happen. It's okay.
Do you feel like that's been your experience?
I felt like I don't feel like this like so-called second movement, like there is like a movement to try and embody it, or I feel like that is not so clear to me right now.
Okay.
But I can look a little more, because I just feel like I just saw that it's always been unfolding on its own, and it continued to unfold that way. And looking at this body and what it embodies, it seems to be very different from what it was, but in reality it was always embodying that same one. So we can talk more about this. I'm a bit fascinated by this now, and I have to say something that maybe I still don't get it what it implies, but
I'm fairly sure I'm really not doing what you
No,
said
it's-
justice, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of going off, like, I guess my own
It's good,
interpretation
it's
and
good.
memory. But,
I think one it's kind of connected to this, but it's kind of something that I'm questioning or struggling, like, not struggling, but can feel sometimes where the not knowing inquiry, whatever, you know, dawns on the mind a little bit, and the referencing drops, and it's very striking, but then it doesn't feel, there's a thought at least that comes in, I don't know, that this isn't grounded, and there's a feeling that that maybe this is disassociating in some way.
this is disassociating.
Disassociating from some. I mean, if the experience was you know, really, but it's still a little light, a little weird, but it everything kind of the referencing to space and this kind of drops, and it's just like, oh, that's so ridiculous that it means nothing to all this plugging in to everything, and it's just meaningless. It's not like I'm going off into space, but it's very light. And then there's a sense of maybe I should be. Then there's also sometimes, maybe, let me see if this makes my question clear. There's a sense I can't think anything, so I can't even take a position to kind of open or let go, and because I can't really think anything, and then it starts feeling like I'm just floating in my mind a little bit, and I feel like I have to use the mind again to kind of find. I don't know if I'm making any sense, because I just sit around all day in Tiru and I don't talk to anybody. So it's just all.
It's fine.
But so I don't know whether I need to. I don't need an answer necessarily, but I question
I'm trying
whether.
to get the essence of what you're saying, what both of you are sharing.
Yeah.
In a way, I feel like I have some sense of it. Would you feel like it is in some way different from what Maharaj is saying, when he said, I just allow my human nature to unfold on its own, I rest as I am? Because that I would feel like resonates very much with the experience here. Would you feel like there's some difference in what you're saying with what Maharaj was pointing to?
Well, I guess I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm going.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll settle in more.
Yeah.
But I can relate to what your experience was as a seeker, where that sense of what is this I am.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I get sometimes what you're saying, where it's like, oh, it's just this,
Yeah.
but I don't have that reference point.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of rest.
Yeah.
Like, but maybe I didn't hear your question.
No. I was saying more in terms of that when we were talking about the embodiment thing, is it somewhat different from what Maharaj was saying, that he allows his human nature to unfold on its own naturally and he remains as I am, or is it is there a bit of contrast compared to that?
I can't speak on it, but
Yeah.
I guess I could say on some level there's a question sometimes of like there could be some movement with like, okay, is there some part or some voice or something that's kind of having a hard time with digesting all this stuff, and sometimes it seems
so
more,
it feels
when
like
I entertain that, it feels
come
like
back to at least some familiar ground.
yeah, it seems like a little more sane, like this sanity where it's versus like me, like almost sometimes I have a sense of almost suffocating, not like actually, but it's like a subtle side, and I can see sometimes where there's some movement where it's just like shut the fuck up, where it's like shut up, don't think anything, and then there's a sense of it's like maybe
but that's also a thought, you see. The thing is that
absolutely.
even don't think is just a thought.
No, it's not.
So it's not like, and I wouldn't. It's like this kind of oppressive. Like, don't do this or don't do that. Like I know that when I used to share all the time, I used to just say, "Don't believe your next thought." Even that was misheard mostly. Where it became like, "Oh, I just have to like don't like that." You see. So that expression has changed quite a bit from there.
I think that's where embodiment means it's looking at some of the thoughts that I'm not aware of, where I can start to see it's where the seeking is kind of playing out in weird ways with weird thoughts
like
that I'm not aware of.
Because
I don't think not thinking, but then there's sense tension. What is this? And then I could look at it just as attention, but then sometimes I'm like, I can realize some of these kind of strange, oppressive kind of thoughts. I don't know. This is not the handbook on non-duality. Body.
It's interesting because it seems to be like quite an open term, and so it can mean different things for each of us.
Every term is like that.
And so then it's like because you could also
it can embody whatever you want it to embody. The term itself. Like I've been saying these days, instead of calling it anger, just say jelly bean. Were you here when I started?
No, it was potato.
Potato. Some are finding potato too heavy, so I'm like jelly bean. But it's just terms. They can actually embody what you want them to embody in a way. The way you. What reference?
Too heavy.
Jelly beans, like. Is it? So I feel like Neti, we can be pretty certain about what it is not. Like what is not being referred to, which is that it cannot be that first de-identify yourself and then pick up some identification again. I don't feel like that could be it at all. And I don't feel like it can be very far from what Maharaj was talking about.
No.
He said he allows this.
But I think like when you like for me when I hear that, there's like a kind of hint of like transcendental. So it's almost like sort of detaching a little bit from experience and just saying like, I'll just let him. And I'm not saying that's how he intended it, but that's what it feels like when I hear the words. It's just, and like I can relate to that absolutely. You know, there's certain times where you see that like, okay, today this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, but really what happened? Well, I am like that happened. But then like, so I think what Ajay's saying is he's saying that like it's the nature of, it's like the effortless natural nature of awakened consciousness to for attention to move towards and explore wherever there's a contraction. Almost actively, not actively in the sense that there's somebody doing it, but actively in the sense that like there's a kind of curiosity in the same way is like inherent in awareness, in the same way there's an intelligence inherent in awareness, and so it's like they don't really conflict, because you can experience one perhaps like mode or something where it just is very almost like detached and things are just flowing, and there's like a real feeling of just leaving life to be as it is and to let it unfold. And then at the same time, or maybe at a different time, it can almost be like something snags inside, and without picking up like self-judgment or guilt of the seeker of saying like, oh, how did I let that, something just like consciousness itself is like, that's interesting, like, and so attention and awareness goes to that, to see, almost like it's like cleansing itself of these sort of residues of like the sense of separation which was believed in previously. And I think that's like the and quite often those contractions are like very human, like they happen in the human arena. They're felt perhaps when we have an argument with a family member, or when we, you know, lose some money, or like something like that. That tends to bring out like that residue of, you know, separation, basically, belief in separation.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
That is, I have no trouble with any of that.
Just a couple of points on what I could gather from what these guys were saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think first point of, the first thing that you guys were saying is probably that, when one talks about an embodiment, I think they're saying it's about a being who is free, taking on a certain thought or so-called personality just to impart that freedom and knowledge. Maybe that's what they were talking about. And secondly, I could also gather that they were saying that, even awakening is part of a larger dream. Somewhat like the Matrix Reloaded. I think it's a little mental space that I think Andy was talking about. Just the mind playing with various concepts, various words. So it's discriminating into things. Is that what you...
Not really.
I was kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
I saw that movie like 8 times in the theater.
So it's like a room full of mirrors, Just keep
there's an explanation online also. I'm truly clueless, eh? Father, I think embodiment just points to those beings who speak from the perspective of knowing their true position. Like when you would say Guruji or you or Gangaji or Rupert or Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, etc. embody the truth. As far as it being brought back into the human experience, I think it is irrelevant, because as long as the body is there, the human experience is there. So it's naturally a part of the human experience. Very well put. Wow, isn't it 7:08? Thank you all so much for being in Satsang today. Sadguru Shri Muji Baba ki Jai.
Sadguru Shri Ananta ki Jai.
Guru Kripa Kevalam. I know it.
Satsangs are extending up to 2 hours
Yeah.
almost, regularly.
Yesterday was also.
Yeah, last couple of days.
Time is slowing down. Time is slowing down.